Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to show you how to install these beautiful TimberTech vertical cable rails. So we're going to show you from start to finish how we do it, and then we'll even show you how to do complicated angles like this. Be sure to like and subscribe. Today we are going to be installing TimberTech's vertical cable rail. This is our first time doing it and we're really excited. So we're going to go through a couple things and teach you along the way the things that we do and things that we might change in the future. So first off, these are posts. So this is for the 36-inch rail and this is for the 42-inch rail. So what we typically do is we use the 36-inch for the railing and then we use this one. I think this is 43.5. Yeah. So this is 43 and a half tall. So we use these for the stairs. That's what we're using them here for. But all the posts on the deck are these guys. So when you get these, they come with the post, the cap, and then the skirt. Now we install them with 4-inch GRKs. So if you check out our framing video, we have flat blocking going around the entire perimeter, and what we do is we double up wherever the posts are going to go. So we know we have plenty of meat to go through the deck board and both 2x underneath. So a couple things that I had got was, first was this TimberTech cable cutter, and then this jig touch-up paint. So I'm assuming that obviously the bracket is going to go inside there. This goes around the post, the bracket goes around there, so we know exactly where we need to screw that bracket in. So when you get this system, you can get 6-foot or 8-foot rails. For right here, we're doing 8-foot, and then over there, we're going to do 6-foot. So they come with 2 boxes. In this white box comes with all of this. It comes with the bottom rail, the supports, the cables, everything like that. And then in this brown box, it comes with just this top rail. Whenever we install railing, we always install our post first. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in this corner, install that one, and the one on the outside first. Then we're going to split the difference, find the middle point, and then install our middle. And then repeat the process all the way around. We just got done installing these 4 posts. Now we have to install this center one, so I'll show you how we do it. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to measure the bottom of the bases. So we are 175 and a half. All right, so we have 175 and a half. Half of that is 87 3/4. So what I'm gonna do is put my tape measure on the bottom and mark 87 3/4. Now, just to be on the safe side, we're gonna double check it and go from this side and make sure we end up on our line, right on the money. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a square here in the center and draw a line and put a C in it. That tells me that is the center line. The base of the post is 5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 2.5 this way and 2.5 this way. And again, take my speed square, mark the outside, mark the outside. Now on the speed square, you can see there's all these little notches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset from the outside of the picture frame 2 inches. So I'm going to put my pencil in the 2-inch mark and carry that across. And now you can see I got a box. So I'm going to put my post inside that box. And I'm going to use this chalk shot. This is great when you can't get a pencil in there. And I'm just going to shoot chalk in there so I know where I have to pre-drill. So it's going to look something like that. And then I take a 1/4-inch bit and pre-drill just through the deck board for the GRKs. All right, And for this deck, we're actually installing lights. So what we need to do is, if you look on the post, you can see it's hollow. So we need to drill a hole through the deck board, through the blocking, so that it can accept the wire. So I start off with a 3/4 inch paddle bit. It doesn't have to be exact, just roughly in the center. Drill through the deck board. Now, if you put an extension on the paddle bit, you could probably get through all of it, but I'm just gonna use my whole hog. Again, early in the video I showed you we use 4-inch GRKs. So we put the post in, grab 4 GRKs. I just kind of hand screw them in a little bit just to hold them. All right, so I obviously didn't tighten them down all the way. So what I do is I come grab my speed square, put it on the outside of the picture frame, and make sure that it's flush along, and then I tighten down. All right, that's obviously not going anywhere, but just to be on the safe side, we're gonna check it to see if it's plumb. So it needs to go that way ever so slightly and towards me. So you can see the bubble. It needs to go that way a little bit. We use composite shims. So what we're gonna do is loosen up some of the GRKs, put the shims underneath, and make sure that it's perfectly plumb. Where it says blocking, it's supposed to say blocking. The guys wrote that, but we always install blocking during the framing process. You can take measurements and get a rough idea of where the blocking and the posts are going to go. So we install this during the framing process before we install the deck boards. It makes life a lot easier. Whenever you're using shims, do not push them in all the way, because then they'll obviously block the hole you just drilled for your wire. So what I do is I just snap a little bit off if I know I need a thicker piece, so that way it doesn't block the hole. Now that's perfectly plumb. So you just snap the, or sometimes if there's not enough to snap, you just cut off the excess of the shim. All right, when mounting the bottom bracket, there's several options that you can do. You can obviously measure it for one and mark it, or TimberTech does make this template. So what you do is you put this around it and then put this inside, and it gives you the exact measurement. Now, since we've been doing this a couple times, this is a little difficult because you got to mark obviously inside those 2 holes and hold that all at the same time. So here are a couple other options. So what I did was I found this at Home Depot. It would actually had a bottom part here that was like a T. So what I did was I notched out the center, and you actually flip this over, and this gives you the exact placement for that bracket. And as you can see, it holds it for you, so you just mark the 2 holes and then you can drill it in for you for that way. So that's one option. Another option was I took another one of these, which obviously this and this are exact, I just cut it there, and I put it on 2 2x. This center hole lines up with that center mark, and then you put that there. Now, I understand most homeowners probably don't have the capabilities of cutting and modifying metal. So, third and best option is Deckmaster J makes this. And what makes this cool is the number up here is 825. It's CNC printed, so it literally just slides right over and it holds your bracket for you. So you feed it in through the back, just like that, and you can see how it sits in there perfectly and holds it for you. Slide that over, and you can mark your holes. So whether you want to order these online before your install, or you order one of these when you get the railing, but I highly recommend getting one or the other, so that way you know exactly where they go. So the 825 is for straight. Now, if you have an angle railing like we do behind us, he does make two different angles, the 824 and the 826. So you can get all three, or unless you just want a straight one, you can get this one. Depending upon which jig you use, I'm just going to use this one for right now. There's basically three options that you can choose. You can get a small tip pencil like this and just mark the inside. You can get a, I think this is Husky. Yeah, this is a Husky. So all you do is you push inside and it actually puts a divot in the metal for you. So if you come over here, so now it gives you a nice place to start your screw or your drill bit. Or the third option is caulk shot, and all this is just chalk. So you put this in, press your button, and now you have two perfectly marked holes. So any three of these options are viable options, whichever you want to use or whatever works for you. If you go this route for the top, like I said, I cut this off and cut this hole in the center. You just simply mark up the center there, put this in, like that, and it's hard to be out of the way and do it at the same time. Mark your two holes and drill it. So here I'm installing the post on an angle. These are a little complicated, but I'm going to do a video to show you exactly how I do it. Essentially, I took my speed square and I measured 2 inches off of the picture frame, and off of that line I came in another 2.5 inches to mark the middle of the post, and then from the outside of the picture frame all the way to 7 inches to mark the back of the post. I know it's a little confusing, but again, I'll do a video right now to show you exactly what I mean. So when installing these posts, obviously this is a 22.5, you have to install the post slightly on an angle. So what I did was I measured 2 inches off of the picture frame and 7 inches, which is back here, to compensate for the 5 inches. And then what I did is I did 2.5 in off of that to find the center point. And I had to actually slide this post back so the top of this post is on my 2-inch mark out there. And as you can see, it's exceeding or passing the 7-inch line back here, but that's what we had to do to line up these brackets so they were dead center to where they needed to be. So on this one it's a little bit more difficult to see, but on that one we slid it back. On this one we actually slid it forward. So the main thing is as you can see, there's 3 lines here: the front, the middle, and the back. The most important part is that this middle line lines up with your center bracket, and mount your posts accordingly. Now we're ready to do the angle. This is pretty complicated, so for homeowners, I'm going to try to show the easiest, simplest way to do it. With the other rails, I took 2 little pieces of scrap. I cut them on 22.5 angles, and I'm going to lock these in just like that. What I'm going to do now is take my tape measure and measure the inside of these 2 little scraps. So I'm going to put my tape there and right there, and I have 54 and 7/8. All right, so what I did was I measured this scrap and came up with 4.5 and 7.5. So what I'm gonna do is take my 54 and 7/8 and add the 4.5 and 7.5. So obviously 4 and 7 is 12. I added that to get 66 and 7/8. So what I'm doing is I took this sheet of plywood and I measured from the edge here and marked 66 7/8. So what I did was I pulled the cables all the way through and set this on the sheet of plywood. And what I determined was basically where this line is, I measured from here to the first cable is 1 7/8 inches. And then I measured from the edge of here to the first cable and 1 7/8 inches. So what this will allow me to do is have the same exact spacing on this side and this side. So now what I'm gonna do is put it on the miter saw and cut 22.5 and 22.5. All right, so what I did was I transferred the line up and now I'm gonna cut my 22.5. And then I'm gonna move this down. Now we're ready to cut the bottom rail. Now typically when I cut the bottom rail, it's like this, and you go down. Unfortunately, if you cut it like this, your angle is going to be reversed. So you want to think about if it's going to be installed, it's going to be installed like this. So you have to mimic the angles the way and either cut it this way or transfer the angle that it needs to be on the top here so you don't make any mistakes. And what I mean by that is obviously you have your angle here and your angle here for the top rail. So if you put this on top like this and transfer those lines, it's not going to be the same because obviously it's got to get installed like this. So the way I achieve that is I take my bottom rail and my top rail and I flip my top rail over like this. And then you transfer the lines and then you'll be good to go. So what I do is I start by cutting my first angle, taking the top rail, lining up the long point with the long point on the edge, and then coming down here, making sure that it's flush, transferring that line. And as you can see, I just did a quick reference mark just so I remember that the angle's going that way. And as you can see, the angle's going that way. So I slide this down and cut on that line. And let's go see if this fits. Like a glove. All right, now we're ready to cut the top rail. So what we're gonna do is, this doesn't have to be exact as the other one with the spacing. Obviously, we're just gonna cut it. All right, when cutting the top rail, it is very important to understand that the measurement you had for your vertical cables is coming off of this thin part. Now that we have a thicker top rail, there's an additional measurement. So you can either remeasure it, or in our case, we just added a 1/2 inch. So our overall measurement was 66 7/8 for the actual vertical rail part. And for this, it was 67 3/8. So we added a 1/2 inch to compensate for the thickness of the two materials. If we cut this and do it like that, we're gonna be too long, because our long point is actually on this side. So what you do is you take a square and just transfer that line across. And now what we're gonna do is cut it this way. So from this point, our long point over here to our long point over here is gonna be our overall distance. So you just slide it down, you keep the saw exactly the same. let's go see if it fits. I'd say that's a pretty good fit. Whenever you're cutting angles like this, you have to account for the two different thicknesses of the material. So obviously the vertical cable rail part is skinny and then the top rail is much thicker. So you either have to take an additional measurement or, like I said, in our case, it was a 1/2 inch additional that we added to get a nice tight fit like this. With our holes marked out, I'm gonna take my 3/32 drill bit and just pre-drill. Now you don't have to, but I just find it a lot easier to do this. And the other nice thing of using that punch is this bit falls right into spots so you know you're lined up. Then you take a square 2-bit for these screws. Now I'm using a regular drill to screw them in. If you want to use an impact, for this is a Milwaukee, there's a mode all the way over here that is for drilling or self-tapping. So you definitely want to have it on that mode if you're going to screw these self-tapping screws so you don't snap off the head. So the brown box is the top rail. You don't need that till last. So open up the white box. All right, so this is a rail. Pull these through. All right, so I do not do what the directions say. You can choose to do it as you wish. So what I do is I rest it on top like that. And then the biggest part of railings are you want the posts to be equal distance, in this case they're cables, but equal distance from the post to the first cable, from the post to the first cable. So just for fun, I'm going to start at the end. So the first cable is 3 3/4. So if I go and set it down like that, you can see that this is not 3 3/4. It's about 1.5 inches. So what I want to do is we now know we need to split that difference. And just for demonstration purposes, I won't start with the end. So we're going to slide that over. Try to move out of the way so you can see. So on the posts, we're about 1 3/4 inches. And, oh. So let's move this over to 2. And see how far away we are. We're at 3. So if we come maybe 2 1/2, 2 5/8, we should be good. So we'll do 2 5/8. And we're 2 1/2. So that means I need to go this way ever so slightly. So we're just over 2 1/2 there, like 2 and just over. So that's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is take my square and mark it. Or you can just look over, mark it that way, put the square on, transfer the line. mark it. All right, and it's always better, as expensive as these railings are, to measure twice, cut once. So we're 2.5, 2.5. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it just like this, bring it over the miter saw, cut straight down there, cut straight down there. Make sure you have eyes and ears. All right, so if you're a homeowner, your posts might not be perfectly plumb. In our case, they are. So that's why I can measure from the top, but maybe you can't. So if your posts aren't plumb, here's another way to measure. So if you get 2 blocks on the bottom and put your rail up against it, you wanna make sure that your cables are taut, and then you're gonna measure. Now, obviously I'm cheating because whatever this railing is what that railing is. They're exactly the same. But again, for demonstration purposes, we're gonna pull the cable taut. We're 2.5 there. And we're a little shy there. So I'm gonna slide this over. Actually the wrong way. I'm gonna slide this over to be about 2 3/8. And we're like 2 7/8. 2 7/8. All right, so now our cables are equal distance from the post. I'm gonna take my speed square, hook it right to here, put it flush against the post, and then mark it. Now the reason why I'm doing it this way is because if your posts aren't plumb, you can kind of cheat the tops one way or the other, either open them or close them. The bottoms are obviously drilled into the base, so they're not gonna go anywhere. So the most accurate measurement you're gonna get is from the bottom. So again, if you're a homeowner and your posts aren't plumb, you can measure from the bottom. So now I have my line here and my line here. We're equal distance from the post here and equal distance from the post here. So we're gonna go cut it. All right, let's see if this fits. Beautiful. All right, so now that's another way you can do it. I'm gonna screw the brackets on and just repeat the process. All right, so this is the way we cut it. All you do is let go of the bottom one. Slide one top side in, and then the other side. Just like that. And then the bottom. All right, so now that this is installed, we still didn't screw it in yet, but since we didn't take a measurement, we're a little over 75. Now, if you refer to TimberTech's directions, 69.44 to 86.5, you need 4 of the metal supports. So on this particular section, we need an 8-foot section. So it came with 5. So we're gonna roughly measure this out. All right, so basically what I'm doing here is I'm spacing out where these supports need to go. Now, because of the size of it, it only requires 4, but then it's off, meaning like you need every 4th one, meaning the 5th one you need to cut out, it doesn't equal out. So what I do is I put one in the center. There's 21 cables. So on this cable, the 11th, whichever way you're going, I'm gonna cut this out, and then off of that, there's 3 cables, then a support, 3 cables, then a support, 3 cables, a support, 3 cables, a support. And on the end, there's only gonna be 2, but that's fine. So now what I'm gonna do is take the wire cutters, which look like these guys, and I'm gonna cut the cables. So now we're gonna pull these cut ones out. And what we found was the reason I didn't screw these yet, typically if it's the third or more, you can get these in, but if it's here, you can't. So I left them unscrewed. Hopefully I'll be able to get this in. Yep, no problem. So now what I do is I put 2 in, and then in the pack here, they have these plastic tightenings for the cable. So what I'm gonna do is just to snug it up, I'm gonna slide a couple in. Just because when you get to the middle, because obviously there's nothing on the bottom supporting and the top supporting it, the middle ones tend to fall out. So I'm just gonna slide these in over the cables. And you can see how it just kind of ever so slightly snugs up these cables. So we've only encountered this a handful of times. For the most part, these plastic clips go in no problem. But I have 3 here that you can see how taut this cable is. It's not allowing me. So I'm just using my Knipex. You could use probably just like needle nose pliers. And I grab the top of the cable and kind of just rock it into place. Just needs a little, there we go. And as simple as that. So now all the plastic clips are on top, and you're ready to now drill and screw. All right, now that we secured all these, obviously we haven't tightened them yet, but we're gonna pre-drill and screw into the brackets from the post. So again, I'm gonna repeat the process like I did and use my 3/32 drill bit. And in here, there's a profile on the bottom. So right in the middle, there's a line. So I'm gonna drill right through the center of that line into the bracket. Now, another thing I like to do is, whether it doesn't make a difference because it's covered, but on this side, I either drill in a little bit or out a little bit. Because what happens if you drill in the same spot, the screws will actually touch. So I'm going to drill a little closer inside here and a little bit outside here. And that way the screws avoid each other. All right, now we're going to come back with the same screws that we used to screw the brackets in. With our square 2 bit. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually using my Recon, and I'm setting it up to do an inside measurement. So what that means is I'm gonna hook this tape measure inside here and actually just back the tape measure up. So what makes this unique is there's a digital display here, but on the side, it gives me all my railing measurements. So it says 75 1/4. So now I know I gotta cut this bottom rail 75 1/4. All right, let's see if this fits. Beautiful. All right, so you saw it from the bottom. All right, so this is what I call a crusher block. Basically what it does is it sits in the bottom and supports the railing from being pushed down. So I know this is my center point, so I don't even have to measure, but normally you would measure. So you drill again with your 3/32. And then All right, now that gives the bottom support. We'll tighten up the cables, cut the top rail, and that's it. Whew. That is a beautiful fit. So one thing is when you get the template kit, they give you a color matching, basically nail polish to do the ends. So you want to make sure when you're ready to install this that you use that. So here I'm showing a time lapse of us installing the first section. Now do not get discouraged. This first section took us probably 2-3 hours to do. In the video I made it look easy, but again, this was our first section. There I am on my phone, texting buddies, asking questions. Now I'm following the directions, laying it out on the ground. We really didn't like that method, so that's why we kind of changed it up. So again, maybe some of the stuff in the video you want to do, maybe you want to change it up. Nothing's wrong with that. There's a million ways to get it done as long as it gets done. So again, I hope the different ways I showed you to do this is helpful. If this video was good, please like and subscribe. And then our next video, we're going to show you how to install the stair vertical cable rail. So make sure you stay tuned. One last thing that I did not cover in the video that as I'm watching this, I remembered. So it's very important that you go back and forth. You can see the guy in the yellow. He's going left, right, left, right, left, right. So you definitely want to follow the directions in regards to tightening the cables. So I apologize. I forgot all about putting that in the video. But again, just follow the directions and it's pretty self-explanatory. Alright, we're coming to the end of the video. Again, please like and subscribe and stay tuned next week when we do the stair video.